This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, gang? Welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you for the next couple hours. Lots to get to coming out of last night's OT loss to the Montreal Canadiens. And a look ahead to tomorrow night at home against the Detroit Red Wings as Original 6-week continues heading into the holidays. Boston Bruins here to take on the Winnipeg Jets on Friday night. We'll recap last night's game, hear a little bit from head coach Rick Bowness, as well as Connor Hellebuck and Cole Perfetti. And Rennie's going to jump on the program today. There's something going through the Winnipeg media. A bunch of our normal guys are very much under the weather, so we appreciate Rennie jumping on today. Always fun to chop it up with Sean. And a little later on, Greg Wyshynski of ESPN as well. We're going to basically hit hockey hard tonight. Big slate of games in the NHL. And Tommy Gazola is also going to jump on with us from Edmonton Oilers, kicking off a big 3-4 nights heading into the holiday season. Losers of 2 in a row after that big 8-game winning streak. So we'll talk a little bit about that, other things going on in the Pacific, and just check out Tom's glorious hair as well for those of you that are watching us live on YouTube. So it should be a real fun show. Also get into a little bit of NFL talk. Crazy end to the game last night. Drew Lock, of all people, authoring a 92-yard last-minute touchdown drive to beat the Philadelphia Eagles and keep Seattle's season alive. And some big news as well that happened just as we got off the air. I know BA and a lot of people in chat will be fired up. Nathan Rourke's been claimed by the New England Patriots. So we'll touch on that as well as we continue the program. Let me give a big shout out to the sponsors that make this show happen each and every day. Our friends at Little Brown Jug, the Winnipeg Jets, Boston Pizza, Royal Sports, Cool Bet Canada, Princess Auto, Nick and Nicky DQ Group, F Apparel, Wallace & Wallace, Vita Health Fresh Market, Sport Manitoba, AEW, April 10th here in Winnipeg, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aquatech, Modern Man Barbershop, and we'll have got a good one for you folks coming off of last night for the Why Not question of the day for Not Autocorp over at Waverly and McGillivray. Let's get Remis in here. What up to everybody in chat? Shout out to the podcast listeners. If you are with us, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. And if you wouldn't mind making sure you hit the subscribe button as well on YouTube. Remo, what's going on?
Trying to forget about that game last night. Still mad. I don't know. I'm annoyed at some of the officiating, but maybe I should be annoyed at the power plays lack of success. Reminds me of, when Patrick Mahomes took that fine and blew up at the official, he was really mad at his receivers who can't catch. So I'm conflicted. I'm irritated the way that game finished, but I think you're happy that the Jets were able to battle through down 2-0. That tying or the first goal at the end of the second was huge, and they played a solid third period. You're not going to win every game, but I liked the fight they brought in the third. But I'm feeling good, Huss, as December 19, counting down to Festivus here.
Yeah, there's lots to kind of parse through from last night's game. Like the first period was... it was just tight. There wasn't a lot on either side. The teams really sort of felt like they were feeling themselves out. And then, in the second period, it opened up a little bit more. I thought Montreal probably carried the play for, part of the second period, and obviously they got up 2-0. But to your point, credit to the Jets for battling back. I mean, I think that's a game in the past that we have seen, I don't want to say a woe is me attitude from the hockey club in previous seasons. Not that we really need to talk much about previous seasons because we don't. But I know at this point, there's a lot of people going, hey, we've seen a great start before. What happens next? I think last night was another example of the will that this team has and the belief that it has in them, that, they can come back from these deficits. But here's the thing. What is this now? 3 times in the last 4 games or so that they've been down 2-0? I mean, they were able to come back against the Ducks. They were able to come back against the Kings. But if you continually put yourself in those deficits, it's tough to win hockey games consistently right now. So a bit better of a start, getting that first goal, and as you mentioned, getting the power play going. Absolutely important for the Winnipeg Jets if they want to continue stacking up those points as we get into Christmas with 2 big games coming up against Detroit and Boston.
Yeah, I think the thing about that too, Hustler, is the power play. It really just hasn't helped them. Like when you have a man advantage, you think you'd be able to, take advantage of that and score some goals. Like 1 for 16 in the last 5, 0 for 2 last night, including it would have been great if they would have scored, kickoff the third period, or they had one in the second as well. And that was their 5th consecutive game giving up a power play goal. So when you're not scoring with the man advantage and giving up when the other team has, it's not a recipe for success. They're able to overcome that in some of the games like LA and Colorado, but last night it kind of hurt them, the special teams, and Rick Bowness saying that after the game. And I feel like there's been a bit too many games this year where Rick Bowness is like, special teams has been the difference. Keeping track. Dallas was certainly one of them where they had the 5-on-3s, and I don't know, there were some, controversial
Vegas games earlier in the season. I mean, and this is why I think if you want to look at glass half full, I mean, the team's had a great start, and the foundation of their success is on 5-on-5 play, and I think that will go. You have to get your power play going. I mean, you cannot consistently be at a deficit on special teams, and I think that is just common sense. But the fact that they've been able to put up the wins that they have been without a consistently successful power play, I think there's certainly, and Rick Bowness has talked about this, there is definitely room to improve for the club, but they're still playing 4 lines. Everybody is contributing. And they're in a very, very good space right now. And, I guess this is probably a good time to get right into it, Remis. The Jets have now played 30 games. They are 18, 9, and 3 for 39 points. 1 point back of Dallas, 1 point back of Colorado, and they do have a game in hand on the Colorado Avalanche. So, they are right there with Dallas and Colorado. And it is really on the back of 5-on-5 play. Hellebuck has been much, much better, and their team defense has been much, much better after about the first 2.5 weeks of the season. And I do believe this is the second best first 30 games the Winnipeg Jets have had since coming back in 2011. You know what the best one was?
Was it 2018? 2017, 18?
It was last year.
Was it last year?
Dude, they were 29-1 at this point last year. And again, and I get it. People that are not convinced of the team or have scar tissue from last season and some other seasons before will look at this and saying, hey, wake me up in April, and then tell me where the team is at. Now, listen, they did make the playoffs, and they did it really on the back of that great first 30 games. But I think when we look at where the Jets are right now, and I'm interested in Rennie's perspective, we'll get this from him a little later on when he comes on the program, that the sustainability, how they got here, I think is it's something that they will be able to continue and improve on when you look at a few of the other aspects of the game, like the power play, that can help them. So, we just slammed another 10-game segment in. The Jets were 6-3-1 in it. And to be 18-9-3 without major contributions from that power play and a really rough start for the PK, I think speaks to just how well this team is playing at 5-on-5, the team defense, the buy-in, things that they really can't control. And I got to tell you, I'm a lot more optimistic that, moving forward, they can continue to play at a high level and can get better because of how much room there is for improvement at 5-on-4, which when you look at the personnel that this team has out there and the way they play out 5-on-5, you would think that they would have more success.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the rankings here for the special teams. The Jets on the power play, scrolling down the list, 23rd, 16.7%. And on the penalty kill, way down 27th, 73.9%, which considering how strong it was last year, and it is very similar personnel, that's interesting. I'd like to see a breakdown of maybe the Jets penalty kill in the last month instead of overall. But this team has talented players. They're definitely going to be missing Kyle Connor for a while. We know what kind of shot he brings and on the power play. But Rick Bowness did field some questions about the power play after the game from Murat, and he said they're going to have to look at it. You can see when it's not going to be working, when they get standing still and they're stick handling, looking for that perfect play over and over, and it's not there. And then they keep passing back and forth, and maybe a pass from the side boards to the D gets picked off, but you can feel it. And when they're having success, they're moving the puck quickly, moving around. I think it's something that can certainly be corrected. But you look at the Jets' record in their last 20, 14-5-1. This is a good hockey team. You have close games, and couple things didn't go their way. We haven't talked about shared our opinions on the controversial second goal for Montreal or the penalty that put them shorthanded, but the bottom line is there was opportunities for them to win, and special teams did let them down again yesterday, and that's been a theme too many times this year.
Yeah, and I guess this is, listen, walking out of the building last night, the Habs fans are invading. There's tons of them, and they finally get a chance to ole, and you're all pissed off walking out. But finding a way to get a point. And I mean, I would say, obviously, it was a power play goal in the, in 4-on-3 overtime by Justin Barron. That was the difference. I mean, and again, you can't take out that penalty. It happened. But they never really got the chance to go 3-on-3 with Montreal. And this was, of course, the second time this season these teams have played. The second time they've gone to the extra frame. The first time it was a shootout that the Jets lost. This time it was OT. But the ability to get that game to overtime, I mean, all of these points are crucial. And, listen, it sucked for fans in the building to not get the 2 points and be able to kind of stick it to Habs fans with so many of them there. But overall, I think when you look, the ability to come back from down 2-0, to show that fight, to very nearly win the game in regulation, it all matters right now. And I am buoyed by the fact that they were able to come back. They're not going to win every game. And I'll tell you what, if when they're not winning, they're getting a point, that is nice. And I think this team will be very focused going into take on the Red Wings tomorrow, Remo, who have been struggling, to use a Joe Namathism, since Patrick Kane. I believe they're 1-5-1 since Kane. And some news, they're also losing goalies by the game. And they were left with one goalie after Ville Husso got injured last night. They had the opportunity. They could have brought up 21-year-old Sebastian Cossa. That is not Steve Yzerman's style, to bring up a goalie that young and throw him right into the mix. So guess who's going to be with the Wings on tomorrow night? Our old pal Hutch. Hutch had signed a contract with Grand Rapids, so he was basically on an AHL deal. And look at Hutch's flow too.
That's really new.
He is. He's grown it out. But yes, the well-traveled Michael Hutchinson will be in the mix, and I'm not sure that they would start him. But I mean, I guess it would be an option. They've got a lot of hockey, but most eyes will be on Patrick Kane and the Wings. But interesting to see the issues they're having right now staying healthy in the net. And an old familiar face signing up and being there tomorrow when the Wings get here.
Yeah, it seemed like yesterday he was leading the the Ice Caps to a Calder Cup final. He's really bounced around. Last played for the Jets, 2017-18, got 3 games in. But since then, he's been to Florida, Toronto, Colorado, back to Toronto, and last year, Columbus. And now this year, Detroit. Only 33 years old, and good for him for getting back into the NHL. 1-year, 2-way deal today. And I think we've passed the point of tribute video, but it'll be nice to see him back here, and good for him getting back. So I'm curious about Detroit. As you mentioned, the record hasn't been very good since they signed Patrick Kane, and I'm anticipate it'll be another great game. I do wonder, Huss, if there's like a letdown aspect. Like you had these 2 emotional games, LA and Colorado on Saturday, like a Monday against a non-conference opponent. After these 2 games, I'm not sure if you can get up for that one. Like, they were like the LA game meant something to them, and I think the Colorado one did as well. And 0-2 against Montreal this year, who's not projected to make the playoffs, doesn't look great. But hey, you still got the point, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? You look at where the team's at. It's not bad. I see Big Guy. Is attendance at Jet games a WST taboo topic? No sellouts versus Habs is disappointing. It's definitely not a taboo topic. We've talked about it before. But I mean, I don't know what. I mean, what are we going to do? Wring our hands about the attendance at every game? I mean, hopefully more of you guys will come out to games. There's not really anything else we can say. The team's playing really well. We've talked about what they've done through 30 games. If there were people that were on the fence, hopefully they're not anymore. And I would imagine. I think Friday's going to be a great crowd with Boston here. We'll see what tomorrow's going to be like. And listen, we've also talked that the organization's got a lot of work to do to try and fill up and reclaim a bunch of the season tickets that they lost. And it's not just going to be overnight that happens. Obviously, the team playing well, you would think would help. And I think it has over the last month or so. But it was a rough start. They're kind of playing catch up right now. That's not a situation you want to be in. But listen, the organization, I think, is working hard in the community to try to do this. This will be a big, big summer for them. And every game that this team goes out and kind of makes more believers of people that this is a team that, can contend. We'll be getting ready for playoff hockey here in Winnipeg. Hopefully they get closer to getting back, filling the building. But, I mean, it's not something like, we're sort of used to it right now. We know that the crowds aren't what they've been in previous years. That's what happens when you lose 3,000 season tickets or so. And it takes a lot of work to get back up. So that's just a little bit on that. Hey, quick why not question of the day, Remis. And this goes back to last night. And this is for Jet fans. What annoys you more? The invasion of Habs fans when Montreal is here, or Leaf fans when Toronto is here? I have to admit, I think the Habs fans are, and maybe it's just because the team hasn't been particularly good the last few years, but I think I would vote Leaf fans in that situation, and we'll certainly see them on that Saturday, January 27th, their next game for WST. In that, at least the Habs do have the great history and all that. A lot of that's passed down. Leaf fans are just a little more delusional. And the fact that they haven't done, I guess they finally won a playoff series, which is nice for all of them. But interested in everyone's thoughts in the chat of what drives them crazy more, the Habs invasion or the Leafs invasion when those teams come to town.
Maybe it's because we just had Montreal here, but and I have negative experience with Montreal fans in the chat at the early days of WST invading us during that playoff series. I had such anxiety doing that show after during that playoff series and the Scheifele hit on Evan. So I will always say Montreal, and it makes it more annoying that they're not a playoff team, and there they were yesterday getting another 2 points against the Jets. And I also forgot or I tried to block it out of my memory, that the Bombers lost to the Alouettes in the Grey Cup. So I tweet out. So, I mean, we haven't even talked about the, maybe controversial officiating decisions. Like Ehlers, takes the tripping penalty at the end, clearly was interfered with off the faceoff and was late to his guy and tried to compensate by diving. But I thought Ehlers was also held in the shift before that. So and no one wasn't mentioned on the broadcast. So I tweeted out the video. I'm like, hey, he was held here too. Like the refs put their whistles away in the third period until they didn't. And I got some Habs fans in my mentions, like posting a picture of, I don't know, the Grey Cup celebration. I'm just like, come on, guys, come on. And there we go. So I'll vote for Montreal fans. And it is annoying, losing twice to a team that's not going to be in the playoffs, and then having all the fans there. But you like to see that atmosphere. And as far as the attendance, I think we've said what more do we need to say? What more do we need to say? And you said it perfectly, yes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, hopefully more of you guys will get out to some games and we won't have to talk about it. But again, we're sort of beating a dead horse at this point. We'll get to the room and we'll talk a little bit more about, and we'll hear what Bones had to say and Connor Hellebuck about that controversial goal on the hand pass. I mean, being at the game, we didn't have the benefit of all the replays that you saw on television. Once I got back after the game, I wasn't sure that puck ever hit Josh Anderson's stick. And at that point, it is a hand pass, but obviously they reviewed it. I think if the call went the other way, I don't think it was conclusive enough to overturn a call on it. And that's why they called it a goal on the ice, so it stuck. But anyways, we'll have more of that. And Rennie's coming up a little later on, and Greg Wyshynski. So lots of hockey talk as we continue the show. Tommy Gazola is going to join us in just a second. The holidays are here, everybody. And our friends at Canadian Club have a CC for every occasion heading into the holidays, whether it's for a holiday gathering, enjoying at home with family and friends, or gift giving. Canadian Club has you covered with sales on all of the Canadian Club favorites right now at Manitoba Liquor Marts. 100% rye, original, and the CC Classic 12-year-old. And don't forget the Canadian Club Invitation Series 15-year-old sherry cask still available right now. The signature CC Classic 12-year-old whiskey finished with a secondary aging in Oloroso sherry casks. All the hallmarks of classic Canadian Club with the added richness and sweetness of sherry. Available now while supplies last. Just in time for the holidays. Makes a great gift or a great addition to the liquor cabinet for the upcoming holiday season. Speaking of holidays, Manitoba Battery, you don't normally think of giving someone a battery for the holidays, but a lot of times very practical things are the best gifts. And you also probably don't have a lot of time right now. Check out some of the things Donnie and the gang at Manitoba Battery have for you just in time for the holidays. 25-foot booster cables for $60. 3 sets of 12-inch booster cables, $60. A 2,000 amp booster pack for $120. An ice fishing package that includes a 10 amp lithium battery and charger for $120. And of course, you can also get a gift card for your loved ones. So next time they need a battery, it's completely free. And of course, every purchase from Manitoba Battery over $60 delivered to you for free anywhere inside the perimeter. Give them a call, 204-783-8787 to take care of these great holiday specials and knock a few gifts off your list in about 2 minutes. And of course, you can also order and check them out at manitobabattery.com. Well, Gazola's coming up here. He's always looking good, but if you need to maybe touch up the salad before getting ready for big holiday gatherings, get on down to Modern Man Barbershops. Now with 8 locations in Winnipeg, including the newest locations on Pembina Highway or Plessis Road, Modern Man Barbershops offer a variety of grooming services, including haircuts, beard shaping, shaves, color services, and more. Make an appointment and book your look via modernmanbarber.com. Give them a follow on Instagram as well at Modern Man Barbershops. And hey, just before we bring in Gazola, whole home renovations are something that, when you're thinking about a project for 2024, something that, your entire family can enjoy and use 12 months a year, maybe a great idea to start thinking about that. And the experts to talk to about it are over at Aquatech, because whole home renovations start with Aquatech, with thousands of renos as their foundation. Aquatech can upgrade any space in your home. If you're thinking spa, sauna, or ready to enhance your kitchen, bathroom, or even add a man cave to your home, visit aqua-tech.ca to learn more about their whole home renovations, including financing options. All right, a holiday visit from handsome Tommy Gazola out with Edmonton Sports Talk. Tommy, what's going on? How are you?
Hi, Huss. I'm doing good, man. I'm just ready for the holidays. It's kind of festive around here. We've had people showing up, a lot of viewers and listeners to our studios, dropping off all kinds of food and sweets and alcohol. So it's been a busy studio. And Dusty's actually doing the lock shop right now in the main studio, so I had to duck into the hangout. And man, it's almost like these games, like tonight's pre and post game, I'm like, oh yeah, we have to do that. So I kind of want to get in on the holiday spirit, but got some work to do here.
Yeah, well, and I guess the Oilers starting a quick 3-4 heading into the holidays, and a very crucial 3 games. We'll get to that in a minute. But I have to ask you, have you been imbibing quite a bit of the 6 o'clocker lager, which has taken the beer scene in Alberta by storm? Unbelievable the response you guys had with such a great named beer that everyone seems to love.
It's a good beer. I'll start with that. Like it is tasty. Lagers are easy to drink and they're versatile, and anyone can have one really. And like the beer snob out there, that's an IPA type of person, like even they can appreciate it. No, it's not an IPA, but the response has been amazing. Honestly, it's been a great partnership with Alley Cat. We sold out, I think, the first weekend, and the second batch had to get brewed, or the brew started basically the day after launch. And now we're talking about bars and restaurants starting to incorporate it on tap. So this thing has taken off, and the fact of the matter is it's a good beer. And it was our listeners that named it. It was our listeners and viewers that designed the label. And this whole thing has been great in terms of like, have I been able to enjoy a lot of it? No, because like we had a batch brought here. I had some at home, but outside of that, like it's a scavenger hunt to find it right now. And I think the next shipment arrives in local liquor stores in 3 days. So it has been frustrating for some, but really, really a neat story. And I hope it continues. And now it's become, if you haven't heard, I know we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when I was on with you, but now it's a permanent fixture in the Alley Cat lineup. And Alley Cat, if you don't know, is a local brewery in Edmonton that's been around for about 25 years, 26 years. So it's been very well received and super exciting. And no, I haven't had enough 6 o'clocker lager that I'm actually kind of hankering for one right now. And I think we have some in our EST fridge.
Well, it's kind of funny that you're on right now, because the Oilers had that miserable start. It was complete chaos on your program each and every night. And then fire the coach. Knobloch comes in, rattle off 8 in a row. Everything's good. And now 2 straight losses, and I'm sure everyone's on the ledge drinking one of those 6 o'clocker lagers because the season's falling down. How different is the attitude around your program over the course of the last couple days as opposed to, a week ago when they were rattling off 8 in a row and getting right back in it?
Yeah, Thursday was an odd turn for Oilers fans. They had an 8-gamer going, like an 8-game winning streak, Huss, and they lose in the third period. They cough up a bunch of goals. Stuart Skinner on Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Lightning coughs up some softies, and they lose that game. The winning streak is snapped, and the fan base goes berserk. Like, I tried to explain, or I tried to give credit to Andrei Vasilevsky for making 54 saves, and he still allowed 4 goals that night. But some of the saves he made were ridiculously amazing, like high skill, highly acrobatic. Like, you're talking about a giant human being that, I don't know, he's like 6'6", 6'7", sprawling out and robbing some of the best scorers in the game. And Oiler fans are going berserk. They're calling me names because I'm pointing out some things. Like, it's just, I'm like, guys, like, first of all, take a deep breath, have a sip of 6 o'clock or lager, and let's take a step back and see what happened here. You got robbed by Andrei Vasilevsky. You had the franchise record for shots in a game. Yes, you got 4 by him, and they're going, well, you got 4 on the guy, you should win the game. Yes, but this was not a standard 3-2 game, Huss. And so, by that point, people they weren't hearing it. They didn't care. They just wanted to be mad, and they vented like they always do. The nasty chat on our YouTube channel was going crazy. And then what made matters worse was the loss, the 5-1 spanking at the hands of the Panthers on Saturday, where Bobrovsky made some outstanding saves. The Oilers weren't particularly great in their own zone. And you saw flashes of early season Oilers defensive zone woes. Not a ton, but a couple that cost them. So, all that goodwill that was built up in an 8-game winning streak where they got over 500 has been, kind of flushed to some. But in the grand scheme of things, they've put themselves back into the mix. And you know what? A couple of good games in the New York area could send Oilers fans into the Christmas season, somewhat content. But as we know with this fan base, you can't please them all. And as good as things are, there's always something more that they want. That's just how it is in oil country.
Well, this is the thing. And we're sort of, relatively spoiled here with the start that the Jets have had. 18-9-3, 39 points in 30 games right now. 1 point out of first place, comfortably in that top 3. And there is a little bit of separation between the Jets and all 3 of those teams and the rest of the wild card spots. And that's what a terrible start like that first month does for the Oilers. They don't have any wiggle room. And, you can rattle off 8 in a row, but if you follow that up with, 3 losses or losing 4 or 5, so much of that work you did is sort of wasted and you're right back in. They have only played 28 games, so they will make up a couple games on teams ahead of them, like Seattle that's played 33, Calgary that's played 32. But, the Nashville Predators, I don't know where Nashville came from. To be honest, they beat the Jets on their big run. It was sort of an off night for Laurent Brossoit. And UC Saros is, for my money, right there with the Hellebucks and the Vasilevskys is, one of the best goalies in the league. But they are getting a lot more from Philip Forsberg right now. Cody Glass actually is playing great on that third line. And the Preds have sort of established themselves as that number 7 team, if you will, the top wild card. They've got 9 points on the Oilers. And, yes, you can have some games in hand, but you have to win them. And I would imagine that there is a real sense of urgency within the team going into the Island tonight and these 3 and 4 against some pretty good teams in the Islanders, the New York Rangers, who are right at the top of the East, and the Devils, who should be better than their record right now, but there's no gimmies right now. And man, if they only pick up, say, one of these 3 and go into the break losing 4 of 5 games, it's again crunch time the minute they get out of that Christmas break.
Yeah, it is. I think for the rest of the season, essentially, Huss, it'll be crunch time, and they only have themselves to blame, in all honesty. I know some people want to point the finger at Kenny Holland. He put together a good team. Now, was the Connor Brown signing a good one? No, he has 1 point in 21, 22 games that he's played. It has not been a good signing. Ryan McLeod has not been good this season. He's supposed to be a steady, up-and-coming third-line center where he could nestle in there for the next decade if he wanted to comfortably on what should be a good team for the next little while. But that hasn't happened. And then their defensive woes and all that cost the coach a job. But yeah, essentially the rest of the season, you can't lose 2-3 games at a time like you're going to have to nip those losses and those losing stretches in the bud really quickly. And I think, lately, obviously the Oilers have been able to do that, but they're going to need to win 3 of 4 and, they're going to need to win 6 or 7 of 10 the rest of the way. And they should be able to catch those wildcard teams, and they do have games in hand on a Nashville, on an Arizona, and they have to take advantage of those. Basically, Huss, the rest of the season, every Western Conference opponent is a 4-point game where they need to be on top of it. If they're not, it might cost them a potential playoff spot. And maybe where they can slip up, quote unquote, is against Eastern Conference teams. But quite frankly, they need to be on the edge and playing with an edge for the rest of the season because of how crappy they were for the start.
You know what? I mean, from a Jets perspective, I mean, you look at, I mean, and it's great. I mean, we're focusing on the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche every night and not paying too close attention to that wild card race. And, we've seen the Oilers a couple times this year. The Jets just had arguably their biggest win of the season in a comeback fashion on the road in LA last week after falling down 2-0, and two big wins against the Colorado Avalanche. But the one team that we have not seen here in Winnipeg yet that has been equally as surprising, if not more, is the Vancouver Canucks. And I'm interested in your perspective as to how they're doing this. I mean, obviously, the start of the season, and maybe that was foreshadowing what was to come for Edmonton, the way those first two games went against Vancouver.
Yeah.
But I know you've seen more of the Canucks. I mean, how impressed are you with the job that Rick Tocchet has done? And is this a team, are they even catchable right now? Listen, there's still a lot of hockey left to be played, but man, the way they're going right now, right there with Vegas and LA, it is one of the great stories of the NHL right now, and that is kind of compounding the problem for the team that you cover every day.
Yeah, for the Oilers, I mean, really, they shouldn't even look. You talk about the Jets talking about being in the mix with Dallas and Colorado and all that, and in a good spot with those really good teams. The Oilers can't even look above the wild card spot. That's how poorly they started the year. They need to, I suppose, if anything, they could look at the Kings, because when they play the Kings, those are going to be 4-point games, and that might be able to reel the Kings in, depending on how the Oilers play outside of that. But the Vancouver Canucks have beaten the Oilers quite soundly 3 times already this season, and it's credit to Rick Tocchet. It's a credit to the players buying into what Tocchet is preaching to them. They've kind of embodied that feisty, tough, we're not going to give you an inch type of style, and they have skill too. So they've kind of put it together. And are they reachable for the Oilers? Well, in theory, yes. Realistically, probably not. And for Edmonton, if you bring it back to the Oilers standpoint, they have to keep it so myopic. Everything one day at a time. It's what Jay Woodcroft used to say, win the day. Like, that is where it's at for the Oilers because of where they put themselves, that you can't even look at the day-to-day standings. You can't even look at what Arizona or Nashville is doing right now. You just need to win whatever game is coming up next and put your head down for a stretch of 10. And if you come out with like 7 of 10, 6 of 10, see where you're at after that for a quick peek to give you an idea and keep that carrot dangling in front of you. But there's no point of looking at the Vancouver Canucks. There's no point of looking at the Vegas Golden Knights. That's gone. That's out the window. Maybe LA when you start playing the Kings, and they'll play them after the Christmas break. But it's sad, but that's where they're at. But the other thing too, Huss, in the NHL nowadays, get into the playoffs, get hot at the right time. People start playing the way they're supposed to. You get healthy. You could be the second wild card spot, and you can make a lot of noise.
And that's the thing about Edmonton that I think scares the hell out of everybody. I mean, with the hole that they've put themselves in, if they can rally and play well enough to get into one of those playoff spots, by definition, they'll have played at a really, really high clip for the second half of the season. And then when you talk about the guys that they have in that lineup, they certainly are dangerous. But you still have to be able to stop the puck. Stuart Skinner and Pickard. What's up with Jack Campbell? And I mean, are they still kicking? Are they still kicking tires? Do you expect him to be back at any point? And if there is one piece that Ken Holland looks to add, is that the position they need to do it? Or is there enough other holes elsewhere that they got to pray that Stuart Skinner can carry the mail for the most of it and look elsewhere?
Yeah, so Jack Campbell's still in the minors. We keep hearing, he'll be up soon. He'll be up soon. Well, others have been saying Jack Campbell's supposed to be called up by, this time next week. After the next trip. Oh, maybe after Christmas. It just seems to get pushed and prolonged a week to week to week to the point where he's been down for, I think, about a month to a month and a half now. And his game started out iffy down in Bakersfield. He had a couple of good games, put together a decent stretch, and then he's had some rough patches recently. I don't think there's a rush to get Jack Campbell back up here. Calvin Pickard has been functional. He's been okay. He had a nice game last Sunday against the New Jersey Devils, and he'll probably start against the Devils later this week. And then because the Oilers play their first back-to-back of the season on Thursday and Friday, which is incredible too. But yeah, Ken Holland will be Jeff Jackson, whoever is at the helm here, because we still don't really know where the power balance completely lies. They're probably going to look to add someone to help Stuart Skinner, because Skinner, although he is this team starter, he hasn't, shown he can be an Connor Hellebuck type where he plays night in, night out, and he gives you that consistency. He's still relatively young in his NHL career, this is his second full season. So there's some people that have really dumped on him and have had no patience for him, which is unfortunate. But he won 7 in a row and 10 of his last 13 prior to the loss that he suffered against the Lightning. He's gotten better, and people throw the goals expected above average. Get that crap out of here. That stat can go to hell for all I care right now, especially with how poorly the Oilers were defensively. That's really digging into the minutia, and I don't care for that right now. As long as he's getting you the wins, I don't care if he lets in 4. And as long as the Oilers are winning or getting that 5th or 6th goal, that's all that matters. And then we could talk about the averages at the end of the year, but they need someone to help out Stuart Skinner to take away some of the burden. And Jack Campbell's not the guy, certainly, and Calvin Pickard can maybe do it here and there, but it's tandems to get the job done, Huss, in the National Hockey League. The Oilers do not have a tandem right now, and then they need to add a defenseman, and they need to add another forward, a depth forward. So there's some holes that need to be plugged. They plugged them last year. They're going to have to do it again this year, whoever's making the calls, Holland or Jeff Jackson.
You know what? This was therapeutic today, Tommy. I mean, a lot of people down at the Jets lost in overtime to the Habs. We just need to hear what's happening a little further west with 2 of the best players in the world in the situation the Oilers are in.
Yeah.
To get everyone back in a positive state of mind. When you guys play, when the Oilers play LA, let me know if there's any sign of Pierre-Luc Dubois when you're playing it. That is one thing that we are enjoying watching right now. Velarde, another goal last night, play the Macarena, and it was. But yeah, the PLD story is that one that we're still keeping tabs of here. I mean, that trade for Winnipeg has just turned out to be, part of the depth of the Winnipeg Jets and how they play at 5-on-5 has really been the foundation of their success so far this year. If you can only get the power play going. But now Velarde's hot right now. Iafalo's contributing. Kapari is injured, but had a nice start to the season. All coming back, and for all of those players, less than the Kings are playing PLD to show up occasionally when the Kings are playing.
I said it in the summer. I did not like that trade for the Kings. I think it makes them a worse team. They're having a great season right now, but there's something about Pierre-Luc Dubois, tremendous talent, but I don't know, Huss. Like, I thought that the Jets did a great job in the return for Pierre-Luc Dubois, and I thought that was a win for Winnipeg. And I'm not doing that to butter myself up to your viewers and your listeners. It's the truth. I thought they got better while the Kings maybe less consistency, let's call it.
Well, the thing is, credit to the Kings. They've only lost 6 times in regulation all season long. And they haven't been getting much from Dubois. Was sort of playing in that 3C role. And it speaks to how well the rest of that team has been playing and how consistent they've been. And again, they've only played 27 games. So that's another team that pretty much is out of sight for the team you're covering. Tommy, great to have you jump on and catch up. Have a wonderful Christmas with you and the fam, and to the EST boys. And obviously I'll do one more lock shop with Dusty before he heads out to the Spengler. But we'll look forward to doing this again in the new year. But say hi to the fellas, and thanks for jumping on today.
Thanks for having me, as always, Huss. Merry Christmas, happy holidays to you, Remo, and everybody down in the Peg and watching on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Hey, by the way, we need to work on, if there's any people that, work at WestJet, preferably, we need to do a deal with WST and EST and, do a little home and home. March 26th, I believe the Oilers are here. So maybe we can work and get you can do the post game, pre and post live on location, and you can bring us some 6 o'clocker loggers when you come.
That'd be awesome. I'd be all for that. Maybe we know a person or two. We can work on it.
Yeah, well, let's talk to the big guy. Get him going. I guess he's nothing else going on right now for sure.
Nothing at all.
Hey, have a good one. Say hi to the fellas, buddy.
Will do. Thanks, buddy.
Good stuff. There's Tom Gazola. Always love catching up with Tommy, talking a little puck. Oilers part of a big slate of games tonight, starting their road trip on Long Island against the Islanders. We're going to hear a little bit from Rick Bowness, as well as a little bit more from last night's game, coming up in just a minute. But again, I know we talked a little bit about attendance. Folks, you want to help attendance? Get some tickets. 2 great games heading into the holidays. Tomorrow night, Patrick Kane, the Detroit Red Wings come to town. And then Friday should be phenomenal. The Boston Bruins' lone visit of the season. Friday night, the start of Christmas holidays. That is going to be a banger. Of course, winnipegjets.com/tickets. Check out the website as well for game packs and other great gifts for the Jets fan in your family. And don't forget, Saturday, December 30th, the Jets back at home, kicking off that home and home series against the Minnesota Wild. Have not seen Minnesota yet this year. We all remember how things ended between the Jets and the Wild last season with that cheap shot from Hartman on Nikolaj Ehlers. Maybe there'll be some seasons beatings in that game. We'll find out. But let's hopefully we'll see you guys out at some games coming up soon. Tomorrow and Friday against Boston, the 2 final games heading into the holiday season. Big thanks to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, gang. If you're looking for great prices on natural and organic supplements, beauty products, and groceries, pop down to one of 6 Vita Health Fresh Market stores or online at myvita.ca. Incredible selection specifically for men when it comes to supplements to help you be at your max. All from Canada's #1 line of men's health supplements, Prairie Naturals. And don't forget, they've also got Winnipeg's largest selection of local products too. Great for holiday entertaining and maybe some gifts as well. Vita Health, empowering people to lead healthy lives. 6 Winnipeg locations and online at myvita.ca. Big shout out to the gang over at Wallace & Wallace for their wonderful support of WST throughout the year. They are Winnipeg's fencing and overhead door specialists. And right now it's time to, give a little extra attention to that overhead garage door because it had lots of ups and downs in the summer and fall, but it's about to work a whole lot harder because winter puts much more stress on a garage door. The right time to prevent downtime this winter is now. Call Wallace & Wallace to book your inspection and maintenance service call today for residential and commercial overhead door sales and service. There's only one name or 2 you need to know, and that is Wallace & Wallace. And hey, guys, with everything happening in and around the holidays, getting together with friends and family and going to parties, have you walked into the closet and realized it might be time to up your menswear game? Well, I got you covered. Head on down to F Apparel, 190 Smith Street downtown. Winnipeg's best selection of men's clothing. Suits starting at $400, along with chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and an incredible selection of menswear accessories. We've also got gift cards, great gift. So maybe give a little nudge, a very simple purchase. You can do it online at that's EPHapparel.com. And be sure to check out all their great deals coming up on Boxing Week next week after the Christmas holidays. 190 Smith Street. And again, that's EPHapparel.com. All right, Rennie's going to jump on with us in a couple minutes. And we do have bones from today, but I want to go back to last night. And first off, here's bones on the second Montreal goal. We touched on it. Very controversial. Thought it was definitely worth the challenge, but just not unequivocal evidence to overturn it. Here's how Bones saw it.
I was kind of more or less going by what I was watching the linesmen go into the scrum and they were giving it the hand puck motion. So They didn't see it that way.
All right, so yeah, they didn't see it that way. Jets ended up, having to kill another penalty, but they did battle back from that 2-goal deficit. Here's just Bones' thoughts on the game overall.
That first period wasn't much room out there for either team. It was fast paced. It was a good period. Second period, it obviously comes down to specialty teams. We lost. It's another game that specialty teams we lost, and that's what cost us that extra point.
All right, so there's Rick Bowness. Talking about the power play again, and let's go with number 4. This is from Marat. He talked to Bones about when the Jets power play is struggling, there doesn't seem to be enough movement of the puck or of players, and that was an issue again last night. Here's what Bones had to say about continued issues for the Jets with the man advantage.
When we see the power play sort of begin to look more standstill, what are they not seeing, or what is that you're looking for that's not yet?
You just said it. Standing still, hanging on the puck way too long. It's not moving. Same thing we've been fighting with all year. I mean, we're going to have to revamp both. I mean, it's another game where the specialty teams, they score 2 power play goals, the 4-on-3, okay, but the 5-on-5 play is very, very good. The team play is very, very good. There's too many games, I can count 5 or 6 games where we lost the game based on specialty teams.
Every team has sort of a different amount of motion they aim for off the puck. How much more are you hoping for from these guys, or is it a whole new thing?
The what, sorry?
Like on the power play, every team seems to have a different amount of movement off the puck, like where you go, where you rotate, all that sort of stuff. How far from what you want are you seeing?
Well, we're not generating much, so you're going to have to look at how we structure the power play too. We're not getting any shots. We're not getting retrievals when there's a loose puck, so it's like one and done even when we shoot it. So we got to look at that too.
All right, there's Bones. Still very pleased with the team game, the way the team is buying into the system, playing defensively. But he's right. I mean, there's 4 or 5 games you can look at and go directly to the inability to score on the power play or kill the opposition power play. That's the reason why there are 9 regulation losses so far this season. That being said, Jets still in a really, really good spot. This is from today after practice. This just came in. Bones was asked about the power play, and I mentioned there could be some changes coming to the extra man unit.
Rick, you talked about potentially making some structural changes to the power play yesterday. Is that something that maybe you slept on, or can you let us know a little bit about it?
Structural and probably move some personnel around.
Okay. Can you give us a hint? Or,
Yeah, not really. We'll see what it looks like tomorrow. No, we wanted to practice it today, but a couple of guys are banged up, and Mo obviously wasn't out there. So, but we'll probably move some people around and try a different look.
All right, there's Rick Bowness. So didn't manage to get too much into the power play today with a few guys. And he did mention Josh Morrissey, who took one right to the grill yesterday, battled through it. The Morrissey Christmas photos, I don't think will be looking as nice as originally intended. But that's a hockey player. It's just hear from Bones, Remo. This is number 3. He talked about Josh taking that one in the grill on last night.
No, I don't know how many stitches. I just looked at it. It's going to be pretty swollen tomorrow. Pretty good chance he's going to have a good shiner tomorrow. So I'd give him full marks for coming back. He's a tremendous competitor. I'd open him up, and I don't know how many stitches are there.
Yeah, he didn't know how many stitches. There was a bunch, Reem. And I think ever since the Morgan Barron incident in the playoffs last year against Vegas, the number of stitches was a hot topic in the post-game scrum, but they couldn't get it out of Bones.
Yeah, Morgan Barron, if you remember, had 75 stitches and was on the cover or the front page of TMZ after he was in the playoffs in Vegas. And we talked about all the surgery that he had. We don't know the number. It would have been nice to tweet it out, get some solid clicks on that, but we don't know. But I was happy. I couldn't believe Morrissey came back without a full cage or a bobble. Maybe he just like, screw it, there's only a period left, I'll just go. And like they didn't have time to, maybe they didn't have one available, but that's scary. Puck, I mean, it's just a harmless play. Like Suzuki goes take a shot. It's Morrissey in the stick, rides up, hits him in the face. I mean, huge hole there, rushes off, and a couple minutes later, he's back on the ice with no protection, and he didn't play today. We don't know what he looks like. I'm having flashbacks to what I think Andrew Ladd had 2 black eyes once from a puck in the face, and he played, and it was an amazing photos of that. So we'll see what Morrissey's face looks like tomorrow. I'm sure he'll speak to the media and talk about how much it sucked.
Well, and I mean, Josh is a very good-looking guy, but probably a little less pretty today with the aftermath of that puck to the grill yesterday. But I mean, what can you say about Josh? I mean, getting back out there. I mean, a big part of the Jets' comeback, obviously assisting on the Gabriel Velarde goal to get them back in it. And then another great thing that happened last night, Remo, I mean, as much as, the end result and not getting the 2 points was frustrating, man, it was nice to see Cole Perfetti get on the scoreboard. And I mean, you could really see the energy that he had after tying the game up. A huge goal in the game, but also big for Cole, who, after that great stretch playing with Nikolaj Ehlers, has not seen as many points come his way over the course of the last kind of couple weeks.
Yeah, they had kind of slowed down since moving Ehlers off the line, but Cole Perfetti still having a great season, Hustler. He's still 21 years old, 10 goals, 10 assists, and it's amazing how many his goals for a smallerish guy are him just finding that open spot in front of the net, and the puck just finds a stick and he puts it in the back of the net. So career high for him. 10 goals, and that was a big goal too. Nemestikov takes a big rip, and Morrissey again, or not more. Perfetti comes from the side and just finds his way to an open spot, and the puck finds him. So he showed his hockey IQ off all season, and I see some secondary scoring. Unfortunately, it wasn't enough, but you had to like the push in the third period where the Jets outshot Montreal. I think it's 15-5. I don't have the number right here, but.
Yeah, no, the Jets brought it in the third period. They weren't able to win it in regulation, and obviously that penalty to Nikolaj Ehlers changed things a little bit. And in the battle of the Barron brothers, it was Justin that'll have the last laugh heading into presumably a holiday dinner with the family. Maybe Morgan just wants to skip that one after the way things went last night. Listen, Sean Reynolds is going to join us right now. But Remo, why don't we just play this other clip from Bones? This is from today, talking about LB getting the net tomorrow and some other injury updates coming out of last night, including Josh Morrissey's face.
For him,
we want him to play at least once a week when we can, and so it's the right game. He's going to keep playing. He's playing really well. We got to keep him in the net. So we wanted to go with Helly last night. We want Helly for Boston because then there's that 4-day break. So this is obviously the game that he should play.
Do you have an update on Josh? Or how's the Shiner looking today?
He's swollen,
okay.
But he'll be okay to go tomorrow.
And then just a quick one, Kapari finally joined the group. I mean, where is he at?
Well, we would hope for after the Christmas break. He's not ready to play this week, but certainly after the Christmas break, we're getting a lot closer when we get to that point.
And anything new with Hanela? Has he been skating separately still, or is he sort of backed off a bit?
Yeah, he's going to skate again tomorrow after the group. So he's back. Yeah, he's skating again, but he's still a ways away.
All right, so there's Bones. Update from today on the injuries and LB getting the start tomorrow. Let's get festive, everybody. Jolly old Saint Rennie joining us right now on the program. You know him hanging out with our pal Ken Weeb on KNR, covering the Jets for Sportsnet. Rennie, best of the season. It is great to have you on the program. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm jolly, just like you said, jolly and festive and all those things. It's been a fun year covering the Jets so far. They're impressive and make us think that there's going to be more gifts to come in the new year the way that they're playing.
No doubt about it. 30 games into the season, just finished another 10-game segment at 6-3-1. Obviously would have loved to have 2 points last night, but a pretty nice third period, particularly to bounce back after falling down 2 and getting it to OT before giving up a power play goal in the extra frame.
Extra frame.
But you know what, Ren? 18, 9, and 3 on the season. It's incredible when I look back. Last year, through 30 games, this team was 29 and 1, which was their best first 30 games ever since the team coming in. I would argue, though, that the way the Winnipeg Jets have played this year through 30 games, the way they've won their games, the room for improvement in areas that had traditionally been a real benefit for the Jets, like special teams, and particularly it comes down to the 5-on-5 play and their defensive play, far more sustainable going forward than maybe what happened last year when things sort of fell apart coming into the new year.
Yeah, well, if you take a look at how things did fall apart last season, there's a point at which, you just have, I don't know about you, Huss, I'm sure this happened to you because I know how the fans react to you and when they see you out, and like how many people come walking up to you when these things are happening. They're like, what's wrong with the Jets, right? It's this, it's this puzzler and everyone can't figure it out, and what's falling apart with this team and all these kind of things. When they're playing like this and they lose games, you can very definitively point to areas, right? It's not the 5-on-5. They lose last night's game because they lose the special teams battle. But the good news about that is those things are addressable. Those things are fixable. Now, is it easy? No, clearly it's not easy, because if it was, the Jets would have taken care of it a long time ago. But you go in with the ability to focus on a couple areas of your game that if you feel you can improve them, you can go from being an already phenomenal team to like a very, very solid team that is, the kind, which I think they already are, the kind that other teams around the league look at and say, okay, these guys could do something dangerous. So I did think it was funny, like the reaction that we saw from that game last night against the Montreal Canadiens. And maybe it's just that it's the Montreal Canadiens, because people either love them or they hate them. And the fact that so many red shirts were in that building last night celebrating that win, I think it peeves Jets fans off. But the idea that people are as miffed as they are about a Winnipeg Jets loss in overtime where they get a point, stacked upon all the success that they've had recently, it just gives you an idea of the expectations placed on this team, and they are earned expectations. People have that expectation of the Winnipeg Jets because they've watched them play. And to your point, this is a team that looks like it's ready to take the next step. It doesn't look like a team that is, poised on or on the precipice of falling off a cliff. It doesn't look like a team that success is unsustainable. They keep playing the way they're playing, and they're going to do just fine. And you can see it in the coaches more and more who had said that they needed to be hyper vigilant this year about the Jets when they felt that they were falling off their game. You can kind of see the ease at which they're now allowing the Jets more and more the ability to take control of the room, and it's not the coach's job to keep them on top of things. Now, I caution all that by saying, listen, the last 5 games, the Jets have fallen down 2-0 in 3 of those games. They got away with 2 of them, got a point out of 1 of them. When you take 5 points out of a possible 6 in games that you've gone down 2-0 in all those games, that's can be a good thing. But I would suggest the Jets probably are not recently at that level we saw of them with that laser focus where they're just steamrolling teams from start to finish. But I think they realize that. I think they know how to manage it. There's probably a little bit of let's just get this into the Christmas break and resume things afterwards. It's a long season. The Jets are managing. If this is the Jets' idea of a low, boy, oh boy, there's a lot of teams around the league that would want to have this low.
Yeah, and you mentioned those 2-0 deficits. I mean, it is actually crazy that you look at 3 games where they fell down 2-0 and they got 5 out of 6 points in those games. And I mean, the LA game kind of stands above them all because of the opponent, because of the way that they did it. But again, they've been doing it without any real success on the power play. I mean, do you have any theories why this unit with all that talent just hasn't been clicking for extended periods of time this season, Sean?
Well, I think one of the issues with it is it's kind of so foreign to what's bringing them success right now. Like, I think the Jets have transitioned to a team that, gets a lot of goals off the rush, but they get a lot of goals by grinding, teams along the boards. And the success that they have is when the teams collapse on them, and when a defender tries to get the puck off Balharry, well, good luck with that. And when they try and get the puck off Scheifele, same thing. And the defense are really active. So when those teams try and throw the puck around the boards and bottle or to get it out, the Jets defense just bottles it up, and they catch their opponent on the perimeter and then move the puck to the middle, and that's when they get their opportunities. Well, on the power play, the opponents are just staying in the middle. They're not chasing the Jets to the board. So the Jets' superpower so far, and the thing that makes them so good at 5-on-5, is really not something that translates to the power play. So they've got to find better ways of I always think, when they're in a situation like this, and, take it for what it's worth. I'm no NHL coach, and there's people who get paid a lot of money to do this who know far more about this than me. But we have seen at times when this Jets power play has struggled, just getting it to the net is often the solution. The 2 goals the Jets score last night, they're not power play goals, but it's as simple as just getting the puck to the net and finding some chaos and trying to capitalize on that chaos. And really, low scoring, grind them out games, I would think that would be the obvious thing to turn to. But the Jets have all these tools, and they want to be able to use them. And when Kyle Connor was in the lineup, they wanted to be able to, have him execute that one-timer. And they want Mark Scheifele to be able to sauce that pass through a bunch of people because they know they've got that skill. I just think it's kind of, you got to start with the building blocks. You got to start with the foundation. I think the foundation is forcing the puck to the front of the net and trying to jam it in, forcing your defenders, the teams defending against you, to respect that. And then that opens up all the stuff they really want to do on the outside.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I think in some ways it needs to get back to basics. And earlier this season, the Jets were playing Vegas, and I think they'd gone dry for about 6 games or so on the power play. And it had become a big topic on our program, on your program as well. And if you're calling that third period, when they finally got a goal, it was Alex Iafallo channeling Chris Kreider, who, made life miserable for Connor Hellebuck in that game, I believe earlier in that week against the New York Rangers. Kind of being a human eclipse. And Iafallo got in there, and it was very simple. Just put the puck on net, get it through, which the Jets haven't been doing as well lately, especially in that San Jose game. And a deflection or a little rebound. And then once they got one, they seemed to really pick it up for the next sort of 5, 6, 7 games. I sort of feel like we're back in that situation. And, tomorrow when the Red Wings come to town, and Rick Bowness alluded to it today, some potentially new personnel, a few other things, I would imagine that first things first, try to make things as difficult as possible for the opposition goaltender, who will in all likelihood be James Reimer tomorrow night. And get a dirty one that way, just to get a good feeling going in on the man advantage again.
Yeah, and I think that the personnel changes are going to reflect that. I think it's just sometimes, I'd suggested it on my program last night, and I took a lot of heat for it. But the idea of moving a player like Adam Lowry to the front of the net, I think, is more than anything just the idea of it is if you put him out there, you know exactly why he's out there. If you're the players on the power play, you know why he's there. He's there to cause chaos in front of the net and to jam the puck in if it gets there. So I'm not saying it's the perfect solution, but what I'm saying is the changes that I expect to see are the kind of changes that will be very direct and hold a message, whether it's Niederreiter in front of the net or however they do this. The changes I expect to see are the kind of changes that make it obvious where the puck has to go, why that person is out there on the ice to do that. It's interesting because when they moved Cole Perfetti onto that line, when they switched out Nick Ehlers and moved Cole Perfetti onto the top power play line, they started having success, but they were having success because Cole Perfetti was going to the net front. And the interesting part about it is I think everyone was expecting you were going to add Cole Perfetti, and it was just going to be another layer of skill, another guy who could make an amazing pass, and they were going to snap the puck around even faster, and there, boom, 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 it's in the back of the net. In the end, what he did was he achieved the exact same thing as if you would put, one of those grinding net front players out there, just with the kind of smarts that go with that, the time to dive in and dive out of the net. So that's what you're looking for, and that's what you would need if you were going to put a guy like Niederreiter or Lowry in front of the net. You need them to have the smarts and the recognition when to pop out from the net front to give themselves a passing option to get the defense to move, but then getting back to the front of that net. I get right now why they're not doing it, because they're not feeling like they're doing a very good job of puck retrievals, right? When they do get the shot from the point or from the sides, they're feeling that the defenders are getting to the puck first and setting it down the ice. So they feel like unless it's the perfect shot, they don't want to take it, because that's, as good as a turnover right now, the way that they're playing. I think the mindset has to shift, not to shy away from it, but to dig even further into it and say, okay, we're going to get more pucks to the net. We just have to have such a mindset that the puck's going net front, that we're ready for whatever rebounds come out, and we can fight the defenders to make sure we keep it in and keep the chances rolling.
You know what? Let's talk about Perfetti for a minute. I'm looking and we're 30 games in. He's now got 10 goals, which is the same as Nikolaj Ehlers, 10 assists. He has not been on the top line at any point, but has been a big, big part of that second line in addition to the power play. Sean, I remember our conversations heading into the year. And, there was a few key players that, the Jets needed a lot from. They needed a big bounce back season from Neil Pionk, who has been delivering in that spot. But that second line, and would Cole Perfetti be the center, how much production they would get, but a big, big part of it. And for a young man that had injury issues the first couple of seasons, I think in a lot of ways the coaching staff's handled him perfectly. Give him that opportunity, but not a role that creates so much pressure, finding some matchups that work for him. And, you talk about the way that he scored on the power play. He's done this before. Like, of the 10 goals, I would guess 7 or 8 of them are all within 2 feet from the net. And he's got that sense. It seems like the puck gets to him. But just thoughts on the season that Cole's had through 30 games and how much of an impact he's had to the overall success of the team through this great start.
I think you really hit the nail on the head when you talked about how well the Jets coaches have managed him, because it was, they came into the season, they wanted to try him at center. Once they put him in there, and a lot of people will tell you the underlying numbers of that line were a lot better than their production. And we should remember the beginning of the year when Niederreiter was on that line and missed how many open nets and hit posts, and it could have been a very different story with that line. And I know a lot of people were saying just keep that line together and let's see where it takes at. The reason the Winnipeg Jets coaches didn't is because if you remember, for the first 2 or 3, 4 games of the year, Perfetti was taking these big hits, and some of them looked like dirty hits, but it became quite clear to the Jets coaching staff that the opposition was targeting him. And the belief with the coaching staff became, if he's going to be in this spot, you're exposing him to the opposition to try and wear him down. Because, that's what you would do, right? If you're the opposition, you feel like you need to win this game. How are you going to win it? Well, we're going to lean on the second line center who's new and isn't the biggest player and all these different kind of things. So they moved him off that and put Nemesnikov in there, but have been, slowly bringing him in. He takes a lot of face-offs. It's a little bit of a hybrid role, but when I asked about that and the idea that that hybrid role would mean that they're kind of under the radar trying to slide him back into center without us ever really knowing it or a definitive time that they did it, so there could be pressure and be okay, he's back at the second line center. Let's see how he does. The coaches said that's not the case. The coaches like Nemesnikov there. They like the game that he's playing, the role that he's playing. I think Perfetti, we all know about his hockey IQ, which means he can play really well with a lot of different players. I think at this stage, he needs to play with good players to have that success. So you touched on the idea of Ehlers was on his line once that he left. That changed things, right? Ehlers has the kind of speed that defenders have to respect. That opens up areas of the ice. He creates a wake. Cole Perfetti's really good at skating into that wake and handling it. Another time I can tell you the coaching staff thought that when Nemesnikov got injured and went out, that line went entirely dormant, and it's awoken with the return of Vladdy Nemesnikov. So Cole Perfetti is going to be a driver at some point in this league. And I know a lot of people will say the underlying numbers show that he's a driver, and I'm not disagreeing with that. But to the degree that it's similar to, I guess, that Montreal line that came in. Everyone's talking about that top line and Juraj Slafkovsky on that line, and how much more, possession they're getting and the opportunities, all those kind of things. But at some point, as a coach, you have to weigh the idea of, are we going to wait for this potential to unfold, or do we need to get some goals right now and be winning some games in the meantime? I think what we're seeing from the Jets right now is they're really liking what they're seeing from Cole Perfetti. And let's not throw any water on the 20 points, the 10 goals and 10 assists he has so far. He's doing a phenomenal job. But I do think the belief with that coaching staff is he still needs to be sheltered to a degree, and he needs to play with good players in order to get out of him what he's capable of doing.
Well, and listen, he's been doing that for the most part this year. And I always think about this, and it's a football saying, but it's applicable to hockey. The best ability is availability, and Perfetti's ability to stay in the lineup, stay healthy, especially the way this year started. And I think about one of those Vegas games where they were absolutely just running him. Welcome to the NHL, kid, sort of thing.
Yeah.
He's shown me a lot that he is able to handle the rigors of an NHL schedule right now. And obviously lots of things can change, and there's a whole bunch of randomness and bad luck that goes into injuries. But it does look like he's more comfortable out there, Sean, and I think that's showing in his play.
Yeah, and a shout out to Jamal Mayers, who did color on our last couple of broadcasts on Sportsnet. He was talking with Cole Perfetti, knows that he switched trainers in the offseason, and gave a phone call to his trainer, who had said, give Cole Perfetti all the credit in the world. He was trying to address, the things that were leading to injuries in his game. The first couple cracks that he'd had in the NHL that ended in injury, and we all know in junior he had that injury that he had to deal with as well. His trainer had said that there was a lot of work put in this summer by Cole Perfetti with the focus on getting into the lineup, like you're saying, and staying in the lineup. And there's, that it's funny because a lot of these players come in and they want to focus right away. Well, I want to do this shot, or I want to pick up this skill, or do it because that's going to lead to more goals. It's probably, if you're thinking of, and I think the majority of us would think off-season working out is boring, but the most boring of all off-season workouts are probably the maintenance kind of workouts, or the thing where you're just like saying, this isn't fun. I'm not working on my hands and trying to add this tool to my arsenal. I'm just trying to build a foundation in my body so that I can last longer. Cole Perfetti put in the work. His trainer was extremely happy with the work he put in. I think the other part about this too is the belief that with young men like that, it takes not just an off season to get there. It takes 2 or 3 to kind of build that kind of body that you're starting to feel is a little bit bulletproof, and you can do all the things that you do. So this is what we're seeing. Not everyone comes into the league like Connor McDavid or Connor Bedard, where they're just kind of ready to go, prepackaged. Cole Perfetti is, like I said, a guy who's going to be a driver in this league, but it's probably a couple years of building his body up to understand the rigors of the game, and that takes time away from him focusing on all the other fun stuff that make you a better player. But the more time he's able to do that, you're going to see him add more and more tools to his arsenal. He's a player who has the work ethic to do it. He's going to improve year after year after year because he's going to make sure that he does the things in the offseason that make him better year after year.
Well, and looking ahead into the new year, and probably more likely February, providing, touch wood, that, the other players stay healthy up front. The way Perfetti's playing right now and the emergence of Gabriel Velarde now that he's healthy is going to give the coaching staff some pretty interesting options when it comes to getting another big gun on that line with Perfetti. I'm with you. And I thought I thought the way you described the Ehlers effect on Perfetti was perfect. I mean, he does sort of leave a wake, and the hockey sense and Cole's ability to get into those spots with open space, set up opponents, was great. I wouldn't be surprised if that actually returned. But if that line continues to play at a very high level and Kyle Connor comes back, it would be interesting to see Kyle Connor and Cole Perfetti get a little bit of a run together as well. And that's not something I think we've ever seen before.
No. And part of this is, as you're talking about, that would happen because Ehlers and Balharry are going so well with Mark Scheifele that you're starting to think, okay, what could we do? Because the premier goal scorer on this team is Kyle Connor. And so we've got this top line that is so hard to handle right now. And we've got the third line that is heavy and can lean on teams and usually takes up the other team's first line, which means this is a scenario by which with the second line, if that's Perfetti and Kyle Connor, is actually getting third line minutes. Now you're starting to get into the kind of depth that won the Pittsburgh Penguins that cup the year they had the HBK line, with Hagelin, Bonino, and Phil Kessel, right? And if those guys can go out and play third line, imagine what Kyle Connor could do if he has the right guys getting him the puck, right? Part of this has to do, and this will be a sneak preview of maybe a story that we'll tell tomorrow on the Wednesday night hockey broadcast when the Detroit Red Wings play the Winnipeg Jets. But I had an interesting conversation with Nikolaj Ehlers about what it's looking like with Scheifele right now, because this is crazy, Huss, and you're going to know exactly where I'm going with this. But for 9 years, these two have been teammates, Mark Scheifele and Nikolaj Ehlers, and we don't have a book on how these two players play together. That's insane. Two top 6 players who've been on a team together almost a decade, and we really don't know or understand how they would play well together. We know that, obviously, because there used to be the near unbreakable line of Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele, and Blake Wheeler, and usually Blake Wheeler and Mark Scheifele would come as a pair. But I talked with Nick Ehlers, and I was like, am I wrong to say that there's really you guys are just kind of discovering each other for the first time? And he's like, you're 100% correct. I'm going out there with them right now, and what you're seeing from us is being like, oh, if I go here, you can find me in that spot. Great. I'm going to go to that spot more often. And you come on the bench, and he's like, well, if you would have been there, I could have got you the puck there. And it's like, oh, okay, so I can go there. These guys combined for, I think it was, they'd played, what was it, eight games together. We've got the stats, and we were going to run it last game. We could run it the next game. But going into last game, I think they had played on a line together for 8 games, and Nikolaj Ehlers had 11 points. Mark Scheifele had 10 points. That doesn't count their line mates while that was happening. So those two combined for 21 points in 8 games between the two of them. I think it works, Huss. I'm going to go out on a line, and I'm going to say I think it works. And Nikolaj Ehlers says to me, we're just at the stage where we're just starting to figure this out. So where that could go, I think, is fascinating. I know a lot of people would think it's sacrilege. Probably Kyle Connor would think it's sacrilege to not be on a line with Mark Scheifele. But I've always said this before: when you've got players who've got the ability to play with a lot of different players, and I think in the past we've never really seen a guy Kyle Connor didn't work with. He works when you put Ehlers with him. He works with Scheifele. He worked with Wheeler. He worked with Pierre-Luc Dubois. There's not a lot of places we haven't seen him work. If you can make him work on the second line, keep that first line doing what they're doing, and have the third line be what they're capable of being, I don't know that there's a lot of teams out there. I mean, you're talking about a very select amount of teams, maybe not even the Dallases of the world, the Vegases of the world, maybe the LAs of the world, that have a chance of matching that depth come playoff time.
Yeah, and just to your point about Scheifele and Ehlers together, they seem to be more comfortable game by game by game. This is close to probably the longest stretch they've ever played together. I mean, at one point they had the Schwelers line where it was Ehlers, Wheeler, and Scheifele. But again, that was very quickly put back with Kyle Connor. Connor did, well, to your point, play well with Dubois at times, and probably had some better metrics as far as what was going on the other side. But again, with what we've seen from the commitment of a guy like Mark Scheifele, starting off with him defensively, I think it gives the coaches far more confidence to put those guys out together. But the first game, if you recall, those guys played together, the first couple periods, it was no Mona Lisa. There was a couple offsides, there was a back pass to nobody. But slowly but surely, they've sort of gotten past that. And we've always heard this about Ehlers. As incredibly talented as he is, he's, for some players, not the easiest guy to play with. I mean, the reads are a little different because he's just so unique. But now that they're getting the familiarity down and starting to know what to expect, and you add in what Gabriel Velarde's bringing to that line, both from a defensive conscience and getting in and around the net and banging in some pucks, you can actually start thinking about other options for Kyle Connor. Obviously, those options are a little ways down the road, but it is fun to think about what a fully healthy Jet team would look like and what that would mean, bringing it back to Cole Perfetti to have another player like that on his line on a regular basis.
Well, when you've got the hockey smarts and the ability to so he can operate in a player's wake when players are fast or big. We saw that with Dubois last year, how he played with Dubois. We saw it when he played with Kyle Connor. We know we have a book on how he plays with Kyle Connor and the ability to kind of move into a player's space. We know that Nemestikov has helped that line, and he's produced well with Nemestikov. So even if it was just those three, I think that would be worth a look. I think there's a lot of people who think that, come the trade deadline, Kevin Cheveldayoff could be somewhat active, maybe go out and get a second line center. So, I mean, you're at this stage right now where you could kind of go and look around the league and say, okay, who's available? And of the people who are available, is there someone who would fit on a second line and allow us to have Kyle Connor play alongside that player and a Cole Perfetti? I think it's fascinating. And just to get back to your point about, people talking about Nick Ehlers being a hard player to play against. Of course he is. He's just a guy who's got this crazy speed that people typically, aren't able to match for the most part. You've got to catch up to that speed. He's got a little bit of a wild man to his game, no doubt. But I mean, I would just say this: how often have we seen, a coach in the past put him on a line and stick with it through the warts and give him the opportunity to kind of figure out his line mates, right? Like, again, he doesn't believe it's happened, right? He doesn't believe he's been given a true first line opportunity on this team in his entire time here. And I get it. The Patrick Laine was here and he had a hard time getting that. And I get that, Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler loves playing with each other and didn't not want to play with each other. I just think at some point with what they had, the idea that we do not have a good book from the 9 or 8.5 years that they've played together of what Mark Scheifele and Nikolaj Ehlers would look like on a line, that's ludicrous to me. It's ludicrous that it's gone on this long. And to see the results that they're getting right now, I think makes it even more ludicrous.
Yeah, well, bring it on. We'll look forward to seeing them tomorrow against the Detroit Red Wings. And Hutch is going to be back in the building. Man, they're dropping like flies in the net. Husso's now out as well. James Reimer and Michael Hutchinson, the goaltending tandem. So we'll find out a little bit more tomorrow morning as to who we expect to be in the net. But it will be Laurent Brossoit and then Connor Hellebuck for Friday night against the Boston Bruins. It's going to be a real fun way to get into the holiday season. Rennie, all the best to you and yours over the course of these next couple weeks, and we'll look forward to K&R tomorrow night and Friday night heading into Christmas.
Thank you, my man. Merry Christmas to you. You know how much it means for me to be able to spend time with you on this program. So once again, I thank you for carving out this space for me. It means a lot.
You're the best, buddy. Have a great one. Say hi to Kenny, and as I say, we'll and everyone here jump in the chat tomorrow and hang out. Hopefully a more festive K&R chat tomorrow after the game than it was yesterday after the unfortunate overtime defeat to the Montreal Canadiens. All right, we are going to chop it up with Greg Wyshynski. Stay on. Interested to see what Wish is seeing from the Winnipeg Jets so far this season. But listen, before we do that, let me give a big thanks to Princess Auto. Hey, the holidays are here, and we know how much Princess Auto guys love everything at Princess Auto. A great time of the year to check out great deals, obviously into Boxing Day, but also an unbelievable spot for gifts for, that person that loves working on things, tools, and cool new equipment. Princess Auto has the best deals on the most unique assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is over at Princess Auto. Pop by just in time for the big guy to come on the weekend. Panet Road, Portage Avenue West. And you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. If you do have last-minute Christmas shopping, I know most of you are big-time sports fans and have sports fans in your family. You can get it all done with one trip to Royal Sports, plain and simple. The biggest and best sports superstore anywhere is at 750 Pembina Highway. So much Winnipeg Jets merchandise there for you. It's hard to truly accurately describe, but all the jerseys customized with your favorite players, tons of Bomber gear, NFL, CFL. What do we have? International soccer. They've got it all. The biggest hockey section in town. And don't forget some really great gift ideas on the Kings skate, snow, and surf side, including that amazing Yeti department there. It's all at Royal Sports. Get there in time for Christmas. 750 Pembina Highway. And give them a follow on Instagram as well, at Royal Sports Pembina, for the latest merchandise drop, sale information, and great last-minute holiday gift ideas. No Jets tonight, but a busy slate of National Hockey League games. And if you're not at the building, the next best place to be is your local Boston Pizza for both Monday Night Football, Thursday Night Football, and of course, every Winnipeg Jet game, home and away. Scarf down those world-famous BP wings, gourmet pizzas, wash it down with an ice-cold schooner, and don't forget to check all the new offerings on the BP appetizer menu. And hey, if you're staying at home tonight, you can always get the great taste of BP by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, let's keep the hockey talk going and welcome in and wish a happy holidays to ESPN's Greg Wyshynski. Wish, best of the season. What's up?
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And happy holidays to you and everyone watching the show.
Hey, we're 30 games in. The Winnipeg Jets are 18-9-3 after dropping a point last night to the Montreal Canadiens. What have you thought about the first 30 for the Winnipeg Jets, and where does that rank on some of the better stories or surprises in your mind at this point in the season?
Yeah, I think it's a better story and a surprise. You're right. I was going to say that there might be a difference between the two, but maybe not. I think what you're seeing is the right guys having big seasons. Obviously, the season Kyle Connor had has been remarkable. We knew when they made the Dubois trade that Kevin Cheveldayoff going for current NHL players versus trying to get futures was probably going to benefit the team in the short term, and it certainly has with the performances of Velarde and Iafallo and player and their impact on the roster. And then, obviously the biggest surprise was for a lot of us getting Connor Hellebuck and Mark Scheifele under contract before the season. I think, personally, I didn't think Hellebuck was going anywhere. I thought that his best contract option was going to be in Winnipeg based on the situation with the cap and based on the number of teams that, had the need for a goalie of his work rate and price tag. But Scheifele was a little bit more of a surprise for me. I thought there was a chance that he might not necessarily go long-term there, and to have them both back and committed before the season, I think set things off on the right course, and it's only been good from there.
Wish the Scheifele season, I'm not sure, has attracted the attention outside of Winnipeg that maybe it deserves.
Yeah.
And if you think back to the last couple of years, I mean, it were not great seasons for Mark. I mean, the end of the season and both years were star-crossed, if you will. I mean, 2 years ago, there were the comments that, didn't even seem like he might be there next year. And myself, and I think a lot of people thought that he was likely going to be elsewhere last offseason, if not at some point this year. And, you combine the Thanksgiving bombshell of the dual extensions, identical, both of these guys sort of saying, okay, we're in going forward. But what Mark has done in a 200-foot game, now that there's nothing to worry about contract, everything's done, and it's just about winning games. I mean, it really probably has been the singular thing that has powered the Winnipeg Jets, and I think a lot of the other players that have really fed off it. Like, it's kind of weird. They've got this record right now. The power play has been miserable at times, but the foundation of this Winnipeg Jets team is 5-on-5 play right up with the best teams in the league, rolling four lines. And when your top offensive players are buying in a way that they haven't been before, it's really spread out to the rest of the lineup. And listen, I had a lot of criticism for Mark over the last couple seasons, but I have to say his performance this year, I think, has been the catalyst, the number one reason why the Jets are where they are right now. And listen, 33 points in 28 games. He's still producing at a really high elite level.
Yeah, and so I guess the question is how much credit do we give Rick Bowness for that? Because, when Bones came on, it was with two tasks in mind, really, which was one, break up the old boys club core on that team. Let them know they're not running the place. And then two is to get some of these guys to buy in more in a 200-foot game and play a more complete game on the ice. And it didn't necessarily translate to everybody, obviously. But in the case of Mark Scheifele, I wonder how much Rick Bowness's teaching, instruction, encouragement, everything else has rubbed off on the guy. Because, like you said, in the last 2 years, not uncoincidentally, Scheifele has been a more complete player under the tutelage of that coach.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And listen, Scott Arniel deserves a lot of credit too, because of course he was running the bench for a good portion of this first 30-game season while Rick was taking care of his wife, Judy. Were you surprised when Adam Lowry was named the captain of the Jets? I mean, when you think about the players on this team that are at the top of that list, I don't think Adam Lowry is there. He's a different sort of captain in a lot of other ways. And I think as much as we just talked about the coach, the way he's brought that team together and the way he and that line have played, dominating at 5-on-5 for a good portion of this period has been a big part of it. But was that an off-the-radar choice in your opinion, or did you sort of think that Adam Lowry would be a guy maybe over a Scheifele or certainly a Josh Morrissey who was right in the mix as well?
Yeah, I really kind of thought it'd be Morrissey, to be honest with you. Scheifele, for whatever reason, I don't think he necessarily needs to wear the C there. You just do your thing, Scheif. Don't have to burden yourself with the rest of the leadership thing. But I thought Morrissey was sort of a natural choice to be a captain there. Is obviously going to be a player that's going to be around that roster for a long time. So that was a bit of a surprise. But again, the one thing I've learned through the years is that trying to predict from the outside or trying to rationalize from the outside what a captain should be or who a captain should be on a particular team, kind of a fool's errand, because inherently the team knows internally who deserves it, who's the guy, and more important than that, who maybe doesn't need to be burdened with the captaincy. It's funny. I did a story recently that required me to talk with Chris Clark. If you remember him from the Washington Capitals, he's now an executive with the Blue Jackets. And I remembered when he was with the Capitals, he got the captaincy before Ovechkin did. Ovechkin was a young kid. And I remember the scuttlebutt about oh, wait, why is this rando winger who's good for maybe 20 goals at best getting the captaincy over the best player on the team, and the reason why the building is full? And it was because they didn't think Ovechkin was ready yet. And Ovechkin himself didn't think he was ready yet. He didn't have a full command of the English language quite yet. And despite being best player on the team and undoubtedly their pace setter, it was Chris Clark's captaincy for a couple of years before it was Ovechkin's. So from that point on, I just said to myself, okay, all bets are off. I'm not going to even pretend to know the internal politics of teams and why certain guys get to see and certain guys don't.
Hey, I know we're a long way till the end of the season and getting into season awards, but it was not lost upon Jet fans on Saturday night that the goals in that huge matchup against Colorado were scored by Nino Niederreiter, acquired at the deadline and extended, Vlad Nemetstikov, acquired at the deadline and extended, 2 goals from Gabriel Velarde and 1 from Alex Iafallo, who came over in the big trade with the LA Kings for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Do you think Kevin Cheveldayoff will get some consideration if the team stays in a top 3 position, makes the playoffs, and does something? Will he get consideration for the job that he's done amongst the top GMs for the past year?
Sure, why not? I mean, when you look around the league, it's going to obviously be somebody who qualifies for the playoffs. The voting, I think, for GM of the Year actually happens during the playoffs. So it's an award where your finish at the end of the season is valued, and then what you do in the postseason is valued as well. Look, I mean, if you win a trade, and in the short term, you could say that the Jets won the Dubois trade. I don't know about long term yet, but I was never really the biggest Dubois fan, to be honest with you. So that him getting lashed to that contract wasn't something I was too crazy about for the Kings. But nonetheless, he's done things that I think have really benefited the team from a transaction standpoint. And more than anything else, he sold the notion of, getting the two most important players arguably on the roster to commit to the team long term, which I think is the biggest piece of business that any GM can do. So you look around the league and the teams that are, thriving because of the machinations of their general manager this season. It's Chevy, maybe it's Steve Yzerman with the DeBrincat trade, and if Patrick Kane can work out, and a few others maybe in the conversation, but certainly Chevy should be in the conversation.
Yeah, well, certainly a long run to go, but I mean, the early returns on that trade have been phenomenal. I mean, Gabriel Vilardi has only played 12 games. I believe he equaled Dubois' goal total of the entire season last night with his goal.
But that's the trick. That's the trick with Vilardi, though, is like if every season you have him, he's at the 12-game mark now. That's always been the issue with him, and that's always been the drawback on him is sort of like, what is the health going to look like? Because otherwise, he's a fantastic player. He's always had the talent. It's just his stability was always the question. But no, Iafallo was a good soldier and somebody that I think just got squeezed out of that Kings lineup because of all the acquisitions they had made on the wing, whether it was Arvidsson or Fiala. But again, you just come back to it. I mean, to know that you had to make that deal, the Dubois trade, to know that wasn't an asset you were going to have anymore, basically, and to decide to get the haul he got. That's the real key here for Chevy. It's like he didn't trade Dubois with an eye towards 2027. He traded Dubois with an eye towards, we still think we have a window to do something here with Hellebuck, with Scheifele, with Connor, the guys that are on this roster. And so I'm going to bring in people that are going to be able to help me now more than anything else. Like, he didn't wait around to pull Brant Clark from the Kings. You know what I mean? So it's like the decision to do that and then to pull the players that he got and have them thrive the way they have is really makes the trade look fantastic right now. But again, it's still early.
Did you see any of that game last Wednesday between the Jets and the Kings?
Jets were down. I did.
Jets were down 2-0, and and that's usually a death knell playing against LA. And we saw that in Winnipeg in the third game of the season when Vilardi got hurt. I mean, the Kings just squeezed the Jets in that 1-3-1 for the second and third period, and that was the game. It was the Gabe Vilardi revenge game. He had a goal and 3 assists. Ehlers had 2 goals. Scheifele, I believe that line had 11 points and was plus 15 in the comeback win. But what was so striking was a couple shifts, and one in particular, where Dubois honestly looked like he was at a family skate at the outdoor rink just down the street from us here in the Peg. I mean, and I know you've been kind of on the fence about Dubois in the past. Yeah. This is a great team. They've only lost 6 games so far in regulation for the season in 27. They're challenging with Vegas and Vancouver at the top, but they're not getting a lot from Dubois. Is this just his general lack of consistency showing again that he can be a great player at times, but you just never know what you're going to get?
I don't know. Maybe he's sad he's not in Montreal. Who knows? Like, maybe he made a mistake.
Trade demands.
Maybe he made a mistake signing there. I mean, first of all, it is a huge change for the guy. I mean, the guy's career has been spent in Columbus and Winnipeg, and all of a sudden find yourself in Los Angeles is a bit of a culture shock, I'm sure. So there's still an adjustment to be made there. There's probably also adjustment between the way he's been playing and the way that Todd McClellan wants his guys to play. I think he'll be fine, but the thing I keep coming back to is the idea that, like, Rob Blake, their GM, saw this guy and said, this is going to be the guy who succeeds Ante Kopitar. Like, that's the play. That's why you sign him. You sign him to have him one day ascend to Kopitar's position on the top line and be that guy, be your stud number 1 center. And I still don't know if Dubois is that guy, but they certainly paid him like he's going to be that guy and put the faith in him that he's going to be that guy. I made the trade to say he's going to be that guy. So we shall see. But the Kings are a really good team. Like, I've been really impressed with them the last couple of seasons. I think hopefully, for their sake, they don't have to run into Connor and Leon in the first round again, because it seems like they can't get past those guys no matter what team they have. But from top to bottom, if they can get replacement level goaltending, I think they're going to be okay. And they're certainly trying to do the Vegas thing out there with Talbot, who's played really well, and now Copley's hurt, so they're going to have Riddick for a while. Like, they're clearly trying to do the we think we're so good that we can Aiden Hill our way to a cup kind of thing in LA this year.
Big save. Dave's back in the bigs coming up. We remember Dave from last year.
Yeah.
Let me quickly ask you about the East and closer to where you're at right now. I know you've always been a Devils guy. They've had a really sort of up and down season so far. Are they on the right track now, Greg? And do you expect them to be in the postseason? Or, because this is a deep, deep East right now. I mean, it's not going to be easy. And you look right now, they got a number of teams to jump over and a ton of competition, if we're just even talking about this first and second wild card.
Yeah, they will be if their goaltending stabilizes a bit. The problem with the Devils from the start of the season has been the goaltending hasn't played to its standards from last season, which weren't really all that good to begin with. But they weren't losing games for the Devils like they were for most of the first quarter of the season. And then the other problem has been injuries. They were without Nico Hischier for a pretty good amount of time to start the season. Then they were out Hischier and Jack Hughes for about 5 games, which they can't recover from. And then they lost Dougie Hamilton, which is, again, still one of the more underreported injuries in this league right now. The guy tore his pec. He's by far their most important defenseman, and he could be on the shelf until the playoffs potentially with that injury. So they've had to deal with some adversity, but they're a really deep team. And when they're on, they still have shown that they can beat anybody in the league. They just need to have competent goaltending. I'm interested in seeing them. I'm going to see them twice this week coming up. One against the Oilers and one against the Red Wings. I'm taking my kid to those games, Christmas, and I'll see. I'll get a good scouting report on them, provided I don't drink too much beer.
Are the Flyers for real? How are they doing it? I mean, I certainly didn't think that we'd be getting into Christmas and see them in second place in the Met.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is what Torts does.
Yeah.
He makes teams tough to play against. He makes them competitive. He takes rosters that on their surface are less than stellar or at times even mediocre and makes them competitive. And so he's gotten better performances out of players that didn't perform well last year. And they're winning low event, played to the margins kind of games, and beating teams that you wouldn't expect them to beat. Now, I was encouraged the other day when I saw Danny Briere, or is it Daniel? I forget where we settled on that. If he's now GM Daniel or GM Danny, he's one of the two. GM Briere said the other day that he's not going to allow the Flyers' early success to mess with his plan for what is essentially a rebuild. And I think that's a great thing. This has been great. It's been fun. I think a lot of Philly fans would be really happy to see the Flyers back in the playoffs. But ultimately, the problem with this team right now is that you don't know what its next phase looks like. They need more good, young, talented players in the system. They need a top-level guy that they can bring onto this team and sort of refocus around. And the only way you do that is through the draft. And right now, being second in the Metro doesn't help ultimately that plan, I don't think.
Wish, before we go, I got to ask you, we had a bunch of coaching changes and just about everyone's had a nice bump after making the move. Of course, last week it was Berube and then that bizarre scenario with Jordan Kyrou. But yesterday it was the Ottawa Senators. And speaking of bizarre, I mean, did DJ Smith do the morning skate, meet the media, and then get fired? What do we know about the situation in Ottawa? And what do you make of Jacques Martin, Alfie being the guys that are taking over on an interim basis?
Well, I do find it wonderful that we do have a coach in the NHL that could refer to Rick Bowness as kid, because yes. Jacques Martin is 71 years old. Steve Staios, their interim GM, was asked about that morning skate thing, and he didn't really have a good answer for it. He kind of just fumbled around and said, these things can take time and yada, yada, yada. But it is kind of embarrassing, I think, for the team to have him do the morning skate, meet with the press, and then get canned after that. I think it's not a very good look for them. But again, that's why he's an interim GM. It's not like he's done this before. I know why they've made the move, and there wasn't really the kind of compelling case to keep DJ Smith around like there was, say, for Jay Woodcroft or for Berube in some cases. Like, the underlying numbers are so good that we just need some things to change underneath the hood and they should be fine. The Senators were a mess. They were 10th in offense, but like 28th in defense. Their goaltending wasn't good. It is the third time I think this year that we've seen a coach get fired because his goaltending wasn't playing up to snuff. So the change had to be made because they weren't playing well, but the change also had to be made because the Senators have a ton of runway in front of them. Like they've like 6 or 7 games in hand on some of the teams in that division. And so if you were going to make a change, it had to happen now. And you hope that Jacques Martin can fix some of the things structurally and especially defensively that are happening in front of the goaltenders. You're hoping that Forsberg and Korpisalo can be better. And then you're wondering if the Daniel Alfredsson of it all can change the vibe. I find it very interesting that basically the thing they decided to do is bring in an old guy who can maybe give him structure and then bring in the most popular player in franchise history to like change the vibes and make people happy and provide some leadership, I guess, behind the scenes. So we'll see if it works. I tend to believe it won't. And that this season is going to be a real disappointment for the Senators, who I thought had the potential to be that team that breaks out in that pack of teams in the Atlantic with Buffalo and Detroit, and it just didn't come together.
Yeah, we're going to see Detroit tomorrow. That's been the one team, although they are kind of in a bit of a slump right now, 1-5-1 over the last 7 since Kane joined the club, but certainly a better start than Buffalo and Ottawa. Hey, just on the way out, speaking of coaches getting fired, in ESPN last week, there was a hot seat rankings of coaches, and DJ Smith was in a galaxy all his own. But the next group of hot seats had Rick Bowness on the top of that list. What gives with Bones?
Look, man, it's not guaranteed this team makes the playoffs. And if this team doesn't make the playoffs, all I was saying is that there could be a conversation about what the next phase looks like. I'm not saying that Chevy's got...
Well, he's on a 2-year deal. That is...
Right. So it's not like I'm saying Chevy's sharpening his knives, right? But like, it is a veteran roster. They clearly have pieces in place where they expect to contend. They're not going into some sort of retooling or rebuilding phase anytime soon. So all I was saying is that the next group behind DJ, and DJ was with Berube before Berube got fired like a day before I published that piece, are decisions that'll be made in the summertime. That's all it really was. And so like he's there with a few other guys whose contracts are up or whose teams are struggling. And it was more about like, there's probably going to be a conversation to be had if these teams don't make the playoffs. And I stand by that. I think if the Jets don't make the playoffs, if things go awry after such a promising start, and it's not because of the usual reasons, i.e. Ehlers gets hurt, which again, like you think about where this team is and in particular where Vancouver is, I think the common denominator is Ehlers played 30 games and Brock Besser hasn't been hurt yet either. Then maybe there's a conversation to be had about what they want out of the coaching position and what Bones wants to do after this season.
Wish, always great having you on the program. Have a wonderful holiday season and Christmas. And just on the way out, I had to ask, how did you manage to get told off by MJF on Twitter, which is now your pinned tweet?
I forget exactly what I said about him, but then he told me go to hell. And for the longest time, my pinned tweet was a tweet that Miro Shatan sent me during the John Tavares free agency period, where I tweeted something where I was praying to Satan to have Tavares go to the Leafs because it would be the most hilarious outcome. And Miro Shatan tweeted at me and said, something along the lines of, I'll do what I can. And it was one of the funniest things that's ever happened to me. But I mean, once MJF, once the Phenom himself, once the AEW champion tweets something snarky at me, I mean, how do you not make that your pinned tweet? How do you not make that your badge of honor on social media?
Well, exactly. And how about Kenny Omega and Chris Jericho as the Golden Jets? A shout out to the Peg.
Short-lived though, man. Kenny had surgery. He's going to be out for a bit, so I don't know if Jericho can carry on the Pride of Winnipeg gimmick, but yeah, for a brief moment, it was wonderful. Kenny, by the way, I think he was so out of it last week. He did refer to their team as the Winnipeg Jets at one point. No joke.
I saw that.
Yeah. So too bad. It was a wonderful moment to see those two, native sons and iconic figures in Winnipeg history. Team together.
He's got like diverticulitis or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's what I saw. Yeah, that's a tough one. That sucks. by far one of my favorite parts of AEW, and always puts on a really good show, and just a bummer he couldn't hang in there with Jericho to do some business.
Well, the fellas are coming back for another AEW show on April 10th, so our fingers crossed that Kenny can get back in the ring, and we'll have the Golden Jets in Winnipeg on that day. Wish, have a great Christmas, man. Thanks so much, and keep up the great work with the ESPN team covering the NHL.
Thank you so much. Merry Christmas, everybody.
Appreciate it. There it is, the man himself, Greg Wyshynski. You can give him a follow on Twitter at Wyshynski. Wish also, big wrestling guy, as we mentioned, the MJF tweet. And hey, don't forget, tickets are on sale now for AEW at Canada Life Center, April 10th. If you have wrestling fans in the family, jump on tickets right now. A perfect stocking stuffer. And yes, our fingers will be crossed that in addition to Chris Jericho, Winnipeg's other prodigal son from the squared circle will be there as well. Get well soon, Kenny Omega. And there you see it right now. All the Winnipeg guys right at the top billing. Omega, Jericho, with the pride of Kelvin High School, Don Callis, right there in the middle. I'm looking forward to it. And stay tuned to Winnipeg Sports Talk for more chances to win tickets, as well as a promo we're going to be doing into the new year on how you might be able to get some ringside seats with the WST crew for the big day. Hey, speaking of Canada Life Center, we were there last night. I know there's probably people that, especially for this big Friday game, going to be having a few beers. Don't forget, generic lager and 1919 available now at Canada Life Center, and great deals on generic lager heading into the holidays right now. 8-pack tall cans, only $19.99 at your local beer store. You can also pick up singles for $2.99. And speaking of singles, head on down to Little Brown Jug right now at the tap room on William Avenue. If you do a mix and match 12-can purchase, buy a dozen of your favorite Little Brown Jug beers, they'll hook you up with a $15 gift card for the tap room to enjoy some of your Little Brown Jug favorites right out of the keg. Right now, Little Brown Jug, you can get the great merchandise there as well. And of course, you can also order online at littlebrownjug.ca. And hey, if you're getting ready for big holiday dinners, why not step up the dessert game? Give Nick and Nikki a call and let them do a holiday DQ ice cream cake for the holiday festivities. Of course, they've got the DQ on Northgate, DQ Polo Park. But if you want to hit them up and get something customized for you and your family, go on to Instagram at DQ Manitoba. You can send them a picture. They'll get it done exactly as you want for a quick and easy pickup at Nick and Nikki DQ, either location. And of course, don't forget, they've also got the new Pita Pit out in Niverville as well with great catering options. Pop down and see them if you are in Niverville. And you can also get catering citywide by hitting them up at Pita Pit Niverville on Twitter and X. I'm looking forward to our Sport Manitoba segment next week. That's going to be coming up on Thursday of this week. But don't forget, Safe Sport Line. If you need confidential help, if you're experiencing or witnessing any misconduct or maltreatment in sport, including bullying, harassment, hazing, or abuse, call the Safe Sport Line for confidential help at 1-833-656-SAFE. More information on that available at the Sport Manitoba website. All right, lots of hockey talk today. But let's get Remis back in here. We do got to get to the cool bet lines. Remo, did you see the end of Monday Night Football last night?
I was so following the Jets game, and I did a post-game show with Connor. That's on our channel if you want to see more of that. I saw that Drew Lock led the team to a win and cut an epic promo after, saying how, talking about the win and, what he's gone through. So it was a shocker. Don't ask me what I think about these games. I'm like, yeah, they're starting Drew Lock. Eagles are going to win. Yeah, -3, that's nothing. And I think that's a couple weeks in a row. I think last week I whiffed on both of the Monday Nighters. So hopefully no one is actually wagering real dollars on that.
Well, we had a Drew Lock delivered a lock shop miracle yesterday. We had there was no Eagles props up because the uncertain situation with Jalen Hurts when we did the lock shop yesterday. So we all took a Seattle prop. Dusty took the kicker to get 6 or more points. Patty took DK Metcalf to get 68 yards or something like that. And I took Jackson Smith-Njigba to have over 3.5 catches. Well, neither of those guys were even close with a minute left. And then Drew Lock got the ball to go 92 yards in the last minute. DK had 2 huge catches, and then the winning touchdown caught by JSN was the one that put us over the top, plus 525 partner parlay cashes. It was truly a miracle. And I had a fantasy miracle as well. I think I told you yesterday I was in those 2 playoff games, and I had Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown in one and was going against them in the other. I got the perfect amount of points to win my one match by 1.5 points, but not enough to get caught in the others, and actually ended up winning them both at the most important time of the year in the fantasy playoffs. So as disappointed as I was after the Jet game with not getting the 2 points, there was some crazy stuff going on, and it all went my way. So it wasn't a total loss on Monday, thanks to Drew Lock in the lock shop.
Yeah, and speaking of fantasy, Huss, I did finish first in the Winnipeg Media League, and I got the bye. And listen, like, I put up the highest score, I think, of any team this year, while my team had the bye.
On the bye. I noticed that.
Did you notice that? Because now my team is for sure losing. I'm incredibly nervous. I was feeling good. I think you won in that league. Didn't you win also?
Well, yeah, that was the game. I was going against Hurts. Like, if Hurts and Brown had another 5 points, I would have lost. But I took out John Hodge. So now in the Media League, what's the matchup next week?
I think you're playing Jeff, aren't you?
That sounds good. And you know, we've got a $50 side bet on who would go further in the playoffs too. And then who were you playing?
I'm playing Josh from the Free Press.
Yes. Action neck.
Yeah, and he's got Jamar Chase, who just got hurt. He also had Geno Smith, who didn't play. So I'm curious if I'll be able to win this one. So I'm looking forward to it. Man, NFL just taking over Christmas as by family activities. You got games Sunday and 3 games on Monday. So on a day off, you know, you're going to be looking at your fantasy league all day and watching games.
Dude,
I don't mind
Christmas night, 7:15 p.m. Niners and Ravens, the top team in the NFC versus the top team in the AFC right now. Lines are up for this week over at CoolBet. Niners are 5.5-point favorites over the Ravens. We won't go through all the lines. You can check those out, but a bunch of futures are up right now. Latest odds to win the whole dang thing is the San Francisco 49ers, the clear favorite right now at plus 215. The Ravens are next at plus 575. The Chiefs are plus 750. Dolphins and Cowboys 9-1. Eagles are now down to 10-1 after that loss last night. And the Bills are 11-1. Being said, the Eagles are still a big favorite to win the NFC East because they have 2 games against the Giants and 1 game against the Cardinals. Dallas has got to travel to Miami this week. So the Eagles are minus 270. Dolphins still minus 222 to win the AFC East. And the Buccaneers now, on account of their big win in Green Bay, are the favorite to win the NFC South at minus 159. Saints plus 175. And the Falcons plus 750 after they lost to Carolina. Saints are in LA to take on the Rams. Both teams at 7-7 in the Thursday nighter. And the MVP award, this is something I've been paying close attention to. Brock Purdy, the clear favorite right now at minus 200. Lamar 5-1. Dak 6-1. But there's Brock Purdy's teammate Christian McCaffrey at 9-1. And I still do have a feeling, and maybe I'm trying to manifest this because I have a 70-1 ticket from preseason. But I'll tell you what, that game on Christmas night between the Niners and the Ravens, you've got 3 of the 4 top picks for the MVP. I have a feeling with all the eyeballs on that game, Lamar, McCaffrey, or Purdy could make a huge step forward in grabbing the award if they go off in front of everyone on Christmas night in that battle of the top two teams in the league.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome game. And for me, we just mentioned that fantasy league. I needed a QB at the end of the draft. I took Brock Purdy, and he's been the star of my team. So I have him and McCaffrey. It's been great propelling me to the top of the Winnipeg Media Fantasy Football League. So that should be a great game. And maybe Lamar Jackson's not a bad bet if they win that game. But those are two great teams. Could be a Super Bowl preview, I think. Go
McCaffrey, go. And I'm just looking at this matchup against Hamilton. I've got Mahomes. I've got Mahomes and Baker. Baker's against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mahomes is against the Raiders, which is nice. But Josh Allen is playing the Chargers. Oh. And then Jared Goff against the Minnesota. And this is a league where we start two quarterbacks. So that is going to be, there's going to be tough. Good luck to Jeff. We'll do a little trash talk when he joins us at some point this week. Although I hope he's feeling better because he is under the weather. Okay, let's get to these cool bet lines. Busy night in the NHL tonight.
Well, here, one sec. We didn't even talk about Nathan Rourke. We're talking NFL? Come on,
I thought we talked about that already. Yes, exactly.
We didn't even mention
BA
it.
in chat.
Here, look, let me get my hat on.
Now you're Pat's guy?
Yeah, been Nathan Rourke fan. Come on, I watched all his games with BC. It was so much fun taking him in fantasy. They claimed him, and he's going to be on the roster for final 3 games. Hopefully he gets in. I don't know what more we can add, but I see someone, maybe the smartest coach in the NFL, has Bill Belichick giving him a chance.
Well, you know what's so weird about this is that, you're exactly right. He'll be on the roster for the last 3 games because he was picked up off waivers. Mac Jones stinks. Bailey Zappi hasn't done much. So, I think there would be an opportunity at some point to see what he can do. Probably wouldn't be this week, I think. They probably give him a little bit of time to get familiar with everything. But the weird thing about this is, Reem, he could go in, prove that he's a really good, a good prospect for them moving forward. Maybe they could extend him. The only issue is that by all accounts, Bill Belichick's probably not going to be there next year, which means a whole new coaching staff.
Yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. Certainly interesting, and it's kind of crazy it took this long for him to get claimed. After so many quarterbacks have gotten hurt this year, it's been a wild season. And we've talked about the games have been not that watchable because, again, so many backups. And you saw what this guy did in the preseason. And in the CFL, you thought someone would give him a chance, but a lot of it is politics and who you know, and hard to be comfortable with a guy maybe you don't have that relationship with. So I think a lot of CFL fans are very pumped to see Nathan Rourke get claimed by New England. And are you going to be cheering for the Patriots now? As if Nathan Rourke gets in, can you bring yourself to go to the dark side? Or though, because they're terrible now, it's okay?
Actually, you know what? I would love for them to win out, to get a much worse draft pick. I do have a worry that they're going to get like that dude from UNC or potentially Caleb Williams or something like that. And then, they move on from Brady. They have a couple down years and then get a generational quarterback. So right now, considering they're out, I'm all in on Rourke. Light it up, win some games, and ruin the Patriots draft pick. I would love that. And then, of course, we'll see if he can play next year because I think everyone, he's such an easy guy to cheer for. And his brother, Curtis, actually entered the transfer portal. He's going to play his senior season. He's moved from Ohio to, I believe, Indiana, the Indiana Hoosiers. Anyways, an interesting thing to people asking about the why not question of the day. Runaway win for Leaf fans being more annoying than Habs fans, even considering we had had all the Montreal supporters in the building last night. All right, rest of these games tonight. Wilder in Boston to take on the Bruins. We'll see the Bruins here in the Peg on Friday. Boston, a minus 212 favorite. The Sabres, minus 187 favorites at home against Columbus. Vegas, you don't get plus money on Vegas very often. Vegas is plus 115 in Carolina. Canes minus 136. The Devils and Flyers are playing. Devils, I like the Devils tonight, coming back off a brutal game where they got lit up by the Ducks at home. I think they bounced back. They're minus 154. We got the Lightning minus 179 over the Blues. Nice game tonight. Rangers, Leafs. Rangers a slight road favorite, -116. Leafs -101. The Oilers are on Long Island to take on the Islanders. Edmonton a -145 road favorite. Islanders +123. Canucks and Predators. UC Saros in Casey DeSmith for the Canucks. Predators now. This was a pick 'em earlier. Predators now favored at -121. The Colorado-Chicago game is off the board for some reason. And then do we get the coach bump? Is it the new coach bump happen tonight, Remo? Ottawa with Jacques Martin taking on the Coyotes at the Mullet. And then, of course, the Sharks at home against the Kings. Sharks a +210. I'm interested to see that Coyotes Senators game. And obviously for everyone else in the Central Division, go Sens go.
Yeah, will the Sens get the coach bump? Looking forward to seeing that. And the Coyotes, man, they've actually been like kind of decent, and they are at home at Mullet Arena where they play really well. And I'm just pulling up the wild card, and I believe the Coyotes, yeah, they're in the second spot behind Nashville with St. Louis and Calgary, who's played 2 more games than everyone and rumored to be big sellers. They got everyone on the trade bait board. So Coyotes, low-key interesting. Connor Ingram's played really well for them, so not sure for the Coyotes. But
isn't it nice not to have all your team's players on the trade bait board? How things can change. I mean, it's obviously good for the show to talk about that stuff, but nice just to be worrying about wins and losses right now as the Winnipeg Jets keep rolling. We do have a bunch of exclusives. If you want to check out the exclusive section under the lock shop. We're going with Vegas tonight over Carolina, Devils over Philly, Ottawa over Arizona. Money line, they can win in regulation, overtime shootout. We got a nice boost up to +635. The guys in the chat, the nasty chat, have been firing off winners. So they have put together what do the guys have today for us? These are from listeners. Tage Thompson, goal. Steven Stamkos, 4+ shots. And Zach Benson, 2+ shots, +825. Jump in on that. And then a basketball. And then, Patty threw one in. Benson and Nichushkin both to record a point, and Nylander to record at least 1 assist. That is +400. So we always get a nice boost in those exclusives. Check those out as well. If you haven't played at CoolBet before, use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200. And join us tomorrow, Dusty's last show before he goes to the Spengler. And then on Thursday this week, Jake and Patty will jump in with me on the Lock Shop at noon over on Edmonton Sports Talk. And we'll do our full rundown for the Christmas weekend in the NFL. Right back at it tomorrow, Rima, with the Wings in town, Patty Kane and Hutch.
Yeah, looking forward to that. Detroit, we're also, we're coming up on Christmas, Boxing Day. World Juniors just around the corner, and we'll be chatting with Scott Wheeler for a preview of the tournament, which you're going to want to listen to. So, and Marat will join us, talk a little Jets, and maybe we can shed some light on the power play. I had those great questions to Rick Bowness yesterday after the game, and who Kevin Kowalik said in chat, well, if they know the power play's been so bad, why don't they change it up? And then I was like, hey, listen to what he said today, and then we played.
There it is.
We played the clip. So it seems
changes are coming.
Yeah, I don't know if Morrissey's gonna. Is he gonna be a full cage tomorrow? Is he gonna wear a bubble? I'm very curious what the power play. If there are changes, can they put them in that quickly? What's it gonna look like? Will certainly give us something to discuss and speculate on before the game tomorrow.
You got it, folks. Join us at 1 p.m. tomorrow. We'll get you ready for the Jets and Red Wings in the second last game before the Christmas break. We'll talk World Juniors. Marat's got a great piece, by the way, at The Athletic right now that we'll talk about, comparing this year's Winnipeg Jets team to the 17-18 Winnipeg Jets. So we'll get to that. More on tomorrow's game. We'll hear from Rick Bowness and more going into tomorrow night's game, where Laurent Brossoit will be the Jets' starting goaltender. And then Connor Hellebuck running it back against the Boston Bruins on Friday. Thanks to Rennie, handsome Tommy Gazola, Greg Wyshynski, all of you for hanging out with us live on YouTube. Shout out to the podcast listeners. Have a great night tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 to get ready for Jets Wings right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.